I think UNC basketball wanted Kansas to smack them in the face. Obviously not literally, but being down 20 in the first half against Kansas, I'm not sure that was wholly not the design. I mean, if UNC wanted to go in there and win by 30 and be in control the whole way, I don't think Hubert Davis would complain. But that's a really tough situation to put your team in. Second game of the year, on the road, number one team in America. Now, I get it was scheduled, a year and change ago. But we've seen, Kansas. I think we know Kansas wasn't going to be a pushover. And UNC can look ahead at eligibilities and things and see when turnover is going to happen and if they could get Armando Bacot to stick around. This game just felt like one that you wanted to get your players' attention quickly, right? Whatever you think they needed to hear, this is a way to say it loudly. UNC almost pulled off a historic comeback against Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse, the number one team in the country, in their second game of the season. Lost by 3. But it's the lessons learned that might be more important. It's the lessons learned. All right, I don't believe in moral victories, but I do believe that if you're losing and not learning, you're wasting a loss. Like that they lost that game but came away with valuable lessons. Here's Hubert Davis, their coach, on being able to come back from down 20 and take the lead, even if it didn't work out in the end.
I was telling the team during the first half, told them at halftime that things can change and things can change quickly if our will and our want to and our desire and the defensive end raises. And that's what we did in the second half. I thought we got stops. Even though they scored 50 points in the paint, I thought we did a better job in the second half. We didn't turn the ball over. I think we only had 4 turnovers in the second half. And then we started attacking the basket, and that allowed us to score at the basket, foul, get to the free throw line, and then be able to knock down some threes. And so I was really proud of them, how they got back into the game.
Here's the lesson learned. Hey, UNC, can you hang with a team with an elite big man? Yes. But it's how you do it that matters. The intensity has to be turned up to 100. You have to play with pace, and you have to get your paint buckets the way you get your paint buckets. What happens when you go down 20 in the first half? You start gunning. You get more aggressive. Seth Trimble scored 16 of his 19 points after going down 20. Jalen Withers, one of their big guys, didn't even attempt a 3 before they were down 20. He finished 3 of 5 from deep. They changed inherently how they played once going down 20, and I think that's the lesson learned. You still have to win. You still have to get points in the paint. But you're probably not going to outpost move a player like Hunter Dickinson, who finished with a 20 and 10 double-double. It's more likely your Seth Trimbles, your R.J. Davises, your Ian Jacksons have to drive into the lane and be perimeter players, big guards going in and scoring. And then if Jalen Withers wants to use his ability as a stretch 4 or a stretch 5 to shoot threes, that's how you use your advantage. Clear out the space, let your quote-unquote small guys, even though they have size, go in and get your paint buckets and fight the fire that Hunter Dickinson brings with your own fire, which is your perimeter players. Putting your team with a handful of new guys on the road at the number one team in the country in the second game of the year with only Elon as a warm-up, I think there was intention there. I think there was a decision there. Now, if it was as specific as I just said, probably not, because it was scheduled a year and change ago. But I think that's Hubert Davis saying, when I have a team with a lot of new pieces, I need them to be tested and also prove to themselves that the best teams in the country, regardless of how they are developed, regardless of how their roster is built, you can hang with them. And that's exactly what they did. They lost by 3. I hope we get a rematch. I hope Kansas and UNC face each other in the tourney. Because I think with the knowledge they have and a season to build on it, UNC will improve a ton. And they will have more confidence in how they play against a team with a Hunter Dickinson-style big than they had at the beginning of the year. And I'm not saying I contributed to it, but everybody around the country, including this show, talked about how their ability to bang with and ability to compete with opposing teams with elite bigs was their biggest concern. And I still think it is, but, do what you do. right? Teams with elite bigs have to compete with your perimeter players. Now, there's one more lesson that I think they need to learn, and Dennis is talking on the phone right now, or else I'd bring him on because I know he agrees with me. RJ Davis needs the ball in the closing minutes. I don't care if Kansas is has a tattoo on their forehead that says we will not let RJ Davis beat us. You have to find a way to put the ball in RJ Davis's hands. Have to, must, requirement. Run him off 14 screens. Have him run circles off screens. But when you have a Player of the Year candidate and you are in a nip and tuck back and forth game with a great team, he has to be the one making the decisions. I'm not saying he has to take every shot, but I like his ability to make decisions better than just about anyone else in the country in those situations. So do not lose that, if you will. He's good enough that you need to pay attention to it. Again, the Drive with Tim Donnelly here on 99.9 The Fan. That is the thesis statement. It is still a Monday sound off, which means the phone lines are open to you. 919-860-5326. Here's a nice, easy transition out of the thesis statement about UNC basketball. We go back to the Heister Automotive Group hotline, which is open, as I mentioned. This time to Rob and Carey. He wants to talk UNC basketball. Rob and Carey, thank you very much. Go ahead and take it away. What do you have to say about the Tar Heels?
Yeah, man, I just think, to your point, just echoing what you were saying, I think they learned a whole lot about themselves in that game. And as a Carolina fan, I'm really excited for the season.
What do you like? If you had to put it into words, I know I just talked about it for 10 minutes, but if you had to put about it in words, what do you think they learned?
Well, when you got that many young players, you got Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, and I always forget the big guy who kind of sparked them in the second half. But you get those guys in that type of an environment and that early in the season, I think Hubert's got to be really confident that the sky's the limit for this team. They can only get tremendously better.
I appreciate the call, and I will dive into that a bit further. The big men, probably Van Allen Lubin that he mentioned there, the transfer big, who had a nice little 10 points, just a wildly efficient 10.
Yeah, fouled out though.
Yeah, but also big man off the bench. You got your maybe slightly more talented big guys in the starting lineup. Some guys off the bench, when you name them 5 fouls.
Like, I'm using 5.
Hey, 5
You're
fouls.
Get
in
5?
there.
I'm using 5.
And then if they want to go, 4 for 4 and 2 for 2 from the free throw line to end with 10 points, 5 fouls just gave you 10 points. There you go. By the way, free throw shooting, they were lights out. I'll actually just bring it up here. I don't know why I was
29 of 31?
28 of 31, which is 90.3.
That's good.
That's very, very good. And also
excellent.
That shows they were 7 of 23 from 3. They're better shooters than that. I don't see that happening very often. RJ Davis, 1 of 7. I don't see that happening very often.
One thing I saw UNC getting a lot in transition, especially the second half, they had a ton of corner threes, like wide open looks. Now, obviously, they didn't knock them down consistently enough, but they were generating a lot of three-point opportunities, especially corner threes in the second half.
If that ends up being Withers who actually knocked some down, that's again a way to combat some of the size that teams are definitely going to throw at this lineup. Again, as far as what you can learn from a game like this, and you heard a little bit of it there from the caller, part of it is just Ian Jackson and Drake Powell and the young guys getting the that's a fastball feel, right? You are on the road in a historic arena, and you got all the trappings that come along with that, so maybe next time they'll be a little less jittery. But also you're ironing out your minutes. I don't know if this is something that is going to be a season-long deal. I may have dramatically overestimated Cade Tyson's role on this team. Cade Tyson shot 46% from 3 a season ago, and he was playing for Belmont. And he was a name that came out of the transfer portal, and I thought this is a shooter. When you have RJ Davis, when you have the Ian Jacksons, guys that are going to be gravitational forces, putting spacing out there, and I think he's 6'7", that was going to be a huge part. He played 1 minute against Kansas.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that.
It might be, and I think a very, very good comparison here is a little TJ Power on Duke from last year, which is like, we want to get you shooting the ball, but you got to be able to move your feet and defend. Cade Tyson is looking a little bit like the defensive end might keep him off, which you understand, right? For a coach like Hubert Davis, you got to be able to move, you got to be able to run, you got to be able to defend. If that doesn't end up happening, could be a lesson learned the hard way. But if he can get out there and shoot, I think that's another element because, as I mentioned, they didn't shoot great from three against Kansas, and they still only lost by 3.